Live from the comfort of our own homes in quarantine, Amer Mansour, Bryce Weisholtz, and myself between the 20s here with a special guest today. They call him the Division III Khalil Mack, the Midwestern Conference second team all-conference player, 4-year starter for the Chicago Maroons with two very noteworthy accomplishments. Yes, he was the all-time U-Chicago record holder for fumble recoveries in a season and the all-time field goal extra point leader for U-Chicago and possibly D3, depending on who's keeping track of the records. Ben Christensen is here with us. Ben, we'll start with you. How are you feeling in quarantine, in your house? What's going on there? Any good news?
I'm good, but
today?
I just want to clarify.
Sort of.
It's blocked field goals and extra points.
Oh,
I don't kick.
Oh, you
just
don't
block. I block.
He's not a kicker.
Not a kicker. But I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We are so thrilled to have you on the
Great to
on
have
the
you,
podcast.
Ben.
And also, I think the biggest accomplishment of all that I did not mention, vice president of the Sports Business Association as well. But anyway, Amer, how are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good.
Back in front of the wood panels.
Yeah, always, man. I'm hyped for this video. We got a new format coming, so stay tuned, guys.
And we have Bryce also fighting with his internet connection as usual, but like I say, we basically are the production quality of ESPN these days, so that's great.
Yeah, we are just about even with them. We're professionals here. What can we say?
This is true. This is true. So today we have a very interesting video for you. We are going to run down the top 5 NFL quarterbacks of all time. Not Division III. That would be Ben's expertise. We're going with a more well-rounded expertise here. But we're going to have – we had so much fun making these lists. I want to have so much fun sharing them with you today. So with that, we're going to start with our number 5 spot, and we'll let our guests lead it off to be the first to go under a bit of criticism. Ben, who is in your number 5 spot?
So for my number 5, I wanted to get a little spicy. I'm going to give you who I was going to put there, but I took him out because I couldn't do it. I wanted to give you Steve Young as my number 5.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
but he was one of my 3 I was going with.
He had, if he wasn't sitting behind Joe Montana, that dude would have had some better all-time career numbers. He's already got 3-0 in Super Bowls, only actually played in 1. Doesn't matter. He had great passer rating during that time, but ultimately a little too short of a career. However, my number 5 is someone that's very similar to him. Aaron Rodgers.
Whoa!
Wow.
It's young. I know we can't take the future too much, but Aaron Rodgers had to sit behind Brett Favre for a little bit in his career. That might shave his numbers off. But right now, he's sitting at about 47,000 yards passing yards. He's got an incredible completion percentage. Right now, I believe the best passer rating, like active of all time in terms of the big names that you're thinking of, is a 102.4. I would guess no one else on any of these lists will even hit 100. He's also got a Super Bowl to his name, 2 MVPs as a quarterback. That's not something you see a lot. There's only a handful of quarterbacks who can have multiple MVPs. And that's my number 5.
Wow. So we're coming in hot from the division.
I'm surprised the Bears fan out of everyone is choosing the cheesehead at number 5. That's surprising for me.
It was tough. I didn't want to, but it's hard not to.
Won't be as surprising as Jay Cutler is number 1. So, Amer, who do you have in your 5 spot?
And my number 5, this is a tough pick for me. I went between a couple of guys, and I definitely left some guys off, but that's what you got to do with the number 5. I'm going with Drew Brees, all-time leader in passing yards, all-time leader in passing touchdowns. He has so many 5,000-yard seasons, it's crazy. He has 5 of them. No one else has more than 1. And there have only been 12 of those kinds of seasons in the NFL, in NFL history. So he's a passing machine. He's been a great quarterback. It's not really his fault that the Saints haven't given him too good of a defense. And he does have a Super Bowl, just like Aaron Rodgers. He's got that ring. The only thing missing is that MVP. But there have been several arguments where you could say he was the MVP of a couple of years. So I like Drew Brees at 5.
Bryce, what do you say?
Fuck. Right. We can't hear you.
No play.
While you leave,
no.
I got to second the notion of Drew Brees. I'm a big fan of him as well. Pretty solid guy. There's a couple ways you got to measure the quarterback. You got to measure their longevity and their overall, like in their prime, how good were they? And Drew Brees has got that long longevity of just being great. Even now, like he might be in some advanced stats, he's going down, but he's still putting up numbers.
You know what I'm hearing, Ben? Compiler. All right. With that, we're going to now turn to Bryce. Who's at your number 5 spot?
Yeah, so there were a lot of guys that I was fighting between. Steve Young, I love the shout out, Ben. That was great. Consider a guy like Jim Kelly, went to 4 straight Super Bowls, didn't win any of them. But really, it was a 2-horse race for me, Brett Favre or Drew Brees. And it just came down to
Brett Favre,
Drew Brees was better in every statistical category, with the exception of the fact that Brett Favre has an MVP. That's really the only difference between them. Drew Brees, to me, he is in the upper tier of quarterbacks. Obviously, he is number 5 on this list for me. You're talking about longevity. Mike, you might call him a compiler, but he's great. He's a great leader. And you're talking about what he does for the city of New Orleans and that locker room. He's a top-tier quarterback. And almost no one thought he could when the Chargers replaced him with Phillip Rivers back in 2004.
Very good selection. This is a very weird consensus.
I have to
fact
check Bryce there because
I like it.
Brees does not lead Favre in every statistical category. Does anyone know what the category Favre is leading him in?
Interception.
With a whopping 336.
Yes, most in NFL history.
Brett Favre was the Nolan Ryan of football. You're either going to get a touchdown or an interception, like how Ryan would either strike you out or walk you. There was no in between.
It's like when James Harden gets a triple-double with 10 turnovers. But my number 5 guy is not anybody else's list, but I feel like he does deserve some recognition. And I knew this was going to happen. I knew he was going to get snubbed at least in the first round. So I'm going with a man who's never won a Super Bowl before, but does have an MVP award, unlike Drew Brees, and that is Dan Marino. The thing that really stood out to me about Marino is that if you look at the all-time just yards and passing, if you go down the first 8 guys, you have Drew Brees, Tom Brady, both active, both recent, Peyton Manning also recent, Favre relatively recent, and then right there at the 5 spot is Dan Marino, followed by Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger. Marino did this and threw for all these yards at a time where it just wasn't known. It wasn't seen before. And I think that's deserving of some recognition. I knew he was adding Dan Marino onto this list. I feel like he deserves some recognition. And of course, fantastic season 1984 when he won the MVP. So that's my number 5 guy. But we're going to move up one more spot on this list. We'll head to number 4. Ben, as the athlete in the room, we'll let you start again.
Number 4. I'm going to keep sharing the love with Drew Brees. Was a big fan of him.
Very nice.
Look at that.
He's been consistently producing elite seasons. Obviously, he has 1 Super Bowl, and he's missing that MVP. But much like a lot of other players, you can argue he could have won an MVP. He has a couple of Offensive Player of the Year awards, I believe. He's just some guy that's been there for a while. He's constantly flinging the rock around the field. You could take him, and right now you can say, can Drew Brees still be the quarterback that can win a Super Bowl? Yeah, he can. There's not many quarterbacks that you can say that at that age that he does it by himself.
It's a very good point.
Yeah, mirroring our comments right there.
Let's go to Bryce now. Just change up the order a little bit.
Oh, skipping me. Okay.
Mike, I don't know if you could see me laughing a little bit when you were talking because you jumped the gun.
Oh!
I didn't snub Dan Marino.
Oh!
He's number 4. He is number 4. Dan Marino, Mike, you said it perfectly. That guy is just exceptional. He came into a team that came off a perfect season, or that has a perfect season under their belt, taking over for Greasy down there in Miami. He could sling it with the best of them. Dan Marino is one of those guys that I firmly believe there's a lot of quarterbacks from the 70s and 80s that are considered great. You got guys like Mark Rippon, Terry Bradshaw. Dan Marino is one of the few that I think could play in today's era at that age, of course. He was the first of his kind that could really gunsling it around. He arguably changed the quarterback position by being one of those deep thrower type guys, almost like a Jay Cutler, but with accuracy and some heart. But Dan Marino is fantastic, and the single thing that he's missing from his resume is a Super Bowl, and I'm not a big believer in Super Bowls denoting a guy's greatness just because football's such a team sport. As opposed to something like, say, tennis, where you're really looking at grand slams there. Dan Marino was fantastic. Mike hit the nail on the head, and he comes at number 4 for me.
So, Bryce, we'll reveal later. He doesn't care about Super Bowls to the degree where Tom Brady didn't make his list. But with that, we'll turn to Amir.
Oh man, you guys are gonna like this one because I also went with Dan Marino at number
Oh,
4.
Yes!
He's on my
Yes!
list, baby. Dan Marino, not much more I can say. Revolutionized the position, put up insane numbers in the 80s when it was all about running, when it was all about defense. I mean, back you won with defense. Look at the '85 Bears. I don't know what to say about this guy. He was amazing. So you guys got it.
My number 4 is the current host of Peyton's Places, and that is Peyton Manning.
Whoa, Mike.
Wow.
I think that he's definitely deserving of a look here. I mean, let's go through this. Obviously, the 2-time Super Bowl champion, which Super Bowl 50, we can all talk, that wasn't necessarily his Super Bowl to win, but nonetheless, he is a 2-time Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP 1 year, not to mention a 14-time Pro Bowler and 2-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year winner. Never won that MVP, but I definitely think he's worthy of consideration of being in this I think upper echelon of quarterbacks. He's just fantastic. I mean, what a guy. Gotta look up to Peyton Manning. He's number 3 on the all-time passing yards list, and he does have a Super Bowl, one more Super Bowl I should say, than Drew Brees, who you guys seem to like. And I'd also argue that Drew Brees played in a bit more of a pass-conscious era. I'd say just because the latter window of his career was in that era when he was compiling as well.
Peyton Manning has the most MVPs of all time. He has 5.
I looked up. I don't know what I missed there. That was a total. I got so confused because I thought there was no way that was possible. So he does have 5 MVPs. Excuse me. So yes, I think that's quite impressive. Apparently, no one agrees with me though, or you guys all got him at 3 probably. So everybody's aired their grievances with the 4 spot.
Yeah, Manning's too low for me on your list, Mike.
Oh, really?
Too.
Low
too.
Wow.
I agree.
Low for all of you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's coming up.
Jeez, I'm just one guy too early here, which means that one of my other picks is going to be embarrassing. All right, so for number 3, we'll turn first to Amer. Who do you got? I swear, if it's Peyton Manning.
It's Peyton Manning, Mike. Number 3. Like these guys said, 5 MVPs. He is the best
I thought it
regular
was
season
0,
quarterback.
Ben said 5. So Ben's the only one who said 5 so far.
Oh, man. 5 MVPs. Best regular season quarterback of all time. The only reason he is not at that number 1 or number 2 spot breaking into those top 2 quarterbacks is just because, to be honest, he choked in the playoffs. He had a tough time. If you watch that Super Bowl against Seattle, that was brutal. And he's had a couple other choke jobs in the playoffs, so he hasn't shown to be clutch, which is actually very opposite of his brother Eli. But Peyton Manning's still a great player. Like we said, 5 MVPs, best regular season quarterback of all time. Number 3.
Regular season. And I think something that's also appealing about Peyton Manning is obviously he's a very appealing guy, hosted Saturday Night Live, it's hilarious there.
He's a funny guy.
Now, doing a lot in the media, but it's also he has that comeback element to him because he had that neck injury where he missed the year with the Colts, and that led to the whole Andrew Luck thing. But he proved that he could still win after that.
He came back. He threw 55 touchdowns, which is still a record.
And won NFL Comeback Player of the Year. So with that, I'm going to turn to Bryce with his number 3. It was also Peyton Manning. Got to look in his face.
Yes, it is also Peyton Manning. I did want to put him. I did want to put him at 2. It's just he continuously couldn't get past one of the guys that's higher up on our list. You all know who that is, and we'll get there. But I mean, the accolades speak for themselves. 5-time MVP. He set records in passing yards, passing touchdowns. He's all over leaderboards for all of those categories. Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne. That was like the glory days of the Indianapolis Colts. Glory days of fantasy football, if you had any of those guys on your roster. Peyton Manning, to me, is just class act at the quarterback position, a consummate leader, and the regular season accolades speak for themselves. He has to be in my top 3.
Wow. And Ben, you also have Peyton Manning at the 3 spot?
I do not have Peyton Manning at 3 spot.
I like the fact that the expert is bringing in.
When I'm looking at how I rank players all time, you have to look at their stats for quarterbacks, yards, touchdowns, passer rating, to account how good they were. you also have to try to adjust by era. You can look at other players during the relevant time periods, and also looking at MVPs to see how they stacked up against other players of their era. And also, when I look at, if they just dominated the regular season, look at how they did in the postseason. That's not just wins and losses, because football is the ultimate team game. If Peyton Manning did make 4 Super Bowls, that's someone that does, I wouldn't say someone, maybe he couldn't get it done, but he was winning a good amount against good teams. So my number 3 is actually Joe Montana. Joe's got the big 4-0 to his name in the Super Bowl. He's got good numbers. He's got 2 MVPs, someone that was good during his era, great teams. Like I said, got to the Super Bowl. He never lost. That's worth something. However, his numbers, nothing really jumps off. Nothing's like a top all-time number. He's got 40,000 passing yards, 63% completion, 270 TDs, 140 picks, great winning percentage of all time. But to me, his numbers didn't justify putting him above Peyton.
Wow. And I got somebody who's ahead of Peyton for me, at least. I have John Elway here.
Okay.
Interesting.
So obviously he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion as well. But I'm also going to invoke a little bit of the era argument here. Era, I know, Queens guy, accent, a little confused. Because he did this in reality when he and Dan Marino started their career at the same time, and he is 9th on this all-time passing list, right above Matt Ryan, for example. And sandwiched between Ben Roethlisberger and Matt Ryan, who I think are examples of how today's modern-day average quarterback still compiles. Not that I'm saying those guys are average, but they're above average, but it's just easier to get up that yard marker. And I think the fact that Elway was able to get there so at such an early time period does make him stand out for me. So that's why I'm going with John Elway as my number 3.
I like John Elway, but you should also take a look at Warren Moon's stats.
I got Warren Moon.
Really similar numbers.
I know, but so you got to pick one of them.
No, I agree. Elway's still got the MVP. He's got 5 Super Bowl appearances, like 2 wins. Like he's better, but it's a little close to Warren Moon.
And he's got the
Elway's
MVP
on the cusp
as well.
for me.
He's got the MVP as well.
Yep.
9-time Pro Bowler.
And he's got the iconic helicopter play, which pushes him up a little bit.
This is true. And now we get into crunch time. Everybody's top 2 quarterbacks of all time. Bryce, we'll start with you again because I think Ben is the one who's going to bring the most ascension here.
So you might be wrong. I will. Just because
you have Eli Manning here?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. First ballot Hall of Famer, no.
You say that sarcastically.
Yeah, yes, I say it sarcastically. Eli, we can talk about that at a different time. I don't know what's going to happen there. But my number 2 guy, and this is going to provide a little bit of dissension, is Tom Brady.
Ooh.
I made the argument beforehand that I don't believe in the Super Bowl argument exactly. Look, he's still number 2 all the time. I feel really weird defending putting Tom Brady at number 2. It's not like I'm putting him at number 6. But I feel like I have to almost where.
You mean the number of rings he's won?
Ha 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 ha. Look, he's had remarkable seasons, particularly the ones with Randy Moss and Deion Branch, Wes Welker. I mean, for God's sake, he turned Wes Welker into an elite receiver. And who saw that coming? He came into unlike the rest of these guys, he came into the league with no draft pedigree, 6th-round pick of the New England Patriots. Tom Brady has been exceptional. He's been to, 9 Super Bowls, right? He's 6-3. And the numbers speak for themselves. Along the same vein, though, as to what we've talked about before, he was propped up these past couple seasons by his defense a little bit. He has fallen off towards the end. Of course, these are the 40-plus seasons where he should be falling off. And he's got exceptional numbers to make him number 2. But just the aura and the allure and there's just something about the guy I have at number 1, and I think you all know who that's going to be. But Tom Brady, to me, comes in at number 2.
Bryce living
blasphemous
close to New England, but just far enough away to where he really hates them. Amir, how about you?
I obviously do not have Tom Brady at number 2. I have Ben's number 3. I'm going with Joe Montana. 4 Super Bowls, one of the most clutch performers of all time. He really just picked it up in the Super Bowl and NFC Championship games. And even after he left San Francisco, after he was kind of pushed out the door in exchange for Steve Young, he still made it to the AFC Championship game with the Chiefs. So he knew how to win, and pretty much wherever he went, he would win. So, I mean, the only knock on his resume is his stats, mostly his yardage. He's like around the 20s rank all time, which is lower than I think all these other guys that I've mentioned. But at the end of the day, you're going for that Super Bowl, and he's got 4. He's never thrown an interception in the Super Bowl either, so he always played his best in crunch time.
And Ben, who do you have at this?
My number 2, Peyton Manning. Talked about him a lot. Just great numbers all time. 2 Super Bowls, all-time leader in MVPs. If you're looking for large
with
sample
0?
sizes, with 5. With 5. You want to look for like someone that just maintained longevity, someone that closed out his career with the Super Bowl, which did he deserve that one for his play? No, but don't forget, the season before that, Peyton had his best year. It was literally that last year he dropped off. The year prior, he was an incredible player still. So it's all, and they made a Super Bowl that year and lost that one. So overall, that's someone that just maintained an eliteness for a long period of time.
Yeah, I agree with Amir on this one. I have Joe Montana at my number 2. I think he stated a lot of the reasons, and I agree. Kind of an all-time winner, 4-time Super Bowl champion, which is, while I don't think Super Bowls are everything, like I showed my Marino pick, I do agree that they do matter a lot, especially when it comes down to these top 2 guys, for me at least. All right, so who wants to kick off the best quarterback of all time? Any volunteers? I guess, Ben, we'll start with you.
My number 1 quarterback of all time is Tom Brady. He's got great stats. He's at almost 75,000 passing yards, pass rating of 97, 540 touchdown passes, 3 MVPs, 9 Super Bowl appearances. Think about that. Marino had 1 Super Bowl appearance, 0-1, but he had 1. Brady has made it 9 times. Has he been propped up the last couple of years by his defense? Yeah, a little bit. But don't forget, just a couple of years ago, he had an incredible offensive performance in the Super Bowl when they won. He's just someone, like, you talk about MVPs, check. Playoff success, check. Numbers, check. He's got everything you look for in your GOAT.
Wow. Amir, what do you
I
have to
gotta
say?
agree with that. Everyone that watches the podcast or has watched at least one episode of the podcast knows I'm a big Tom Brady guy.
Even a baseball episode it seems to come out. Yeah.
I always bring him up because he's the GOAT, and he's awesome. I mean, 20 years of just dominance. He's made the Super Bowl in half of his healthy seasons, 9 out of 18. It's crazy. He just wins. And he makes plays in the biggest moments. You can check out all of his Super Bowl performances. Even his first one, he led the game-winning drive all the way to the big throw to Rob Gronkowski to score the only touchdown in Super Bowl 53 against the Rams. He just picks it up when it's most important. And, of course, everything got capped off with 28-3 down in Houston against the Atlanta Falcons.
Speaking of capping, we now turn to B.
Thanks for the intro. Thank you. Look, I gave my stance on Tom Brady. He's great. It's unequivocally great. Joe Montana is my number 1 quarterback of all time.
Wow.
Outside of the yards, he is exceptional. Again, the 4-0 Super Bowls. I've already made the argument that I don't care about numbers here necessarily in wins or appearances. I am going to make the era argument a little bit. He played in less of a passing era than really any of the other guys on our list, with the exception of Dan Marino. He played with Jerry Rice, who, number 1 receiver unequivocally on everybody's list. Joe Montana was exceptional, big time, in every sense of the word. He is among the most winningest quarterbacks of all time. You guys have said basically all there is to say about Joe Montana because he's already appeared on your list. But to me, he plus the aura and the image of Joe Montana pushes him to number 1 all time.
So I do have to say, if quarterback is synonymous with leader, as a lot of people say, I would have Bill Belichick as my number 1 quarterback, but I think that would be a little bit too contentious here. So I'm going to agree with Ben and Amir and go Tom Brady. I mean, 6-time Super Bowl champion, 9 appearances like we talked about. I just don't think – I think that gap – I mean, he's won 2 more Super Bowls than any other quarterback that we've mentioned here. And that's is the most of any player, I think, right, guys? That's the most of any NFL player, not including their career. I don't think you can turn against winning. I mean, I was talking to my brother today about the last like 3 or 4 Super Bowls, all of which have involved the Patriots, basically. I mean, I guess not the most recent, but the 3 before that, it was just, did the Patriots win the Super Bowl this year is really the question. You had a 50-50 shot at that question, which is just incredible. I mean, just an incredible run, only capped off by the fact that they were beaten by the Giants twice. I think that's if it was an argument, the fact that he let the Giants win twice in the Super Bowl is pumps him right up to number 1. People don't understand how I can be a Giants fan like Tom Brady, but I think that it's a very easy argument.
Oh
right?
my God.
No, it's not.
But anybody have anything they want to say looking back at our top 5 quarterbacks of all time here?
I think some people need to look at touchdown to interception ratio to overbalance things a little bit. Just a little bit.
Really? Which person in particular you focusing on?
You know, it's hard to look at. The era argument's important across any sport when you look at all-time grades. However, an interception was always an interception, and people always understood the true value of a turnover or an interception. So when people are tossing around interceptions, I don't think anyone was taking those lightly. Everyone knew exactly what it was. So a 3-pointer in basketball might have been deceiving at first because it's farther. You got to do some math with that, figure out, is that actually worth it? People weren't used to it. But everyone always knew what an interception was worth. It was the same as a fumble. And that's why I think it's hard to adjust era without really not underweighting interceptions back then.
That's fair. I think that's the reason none of us have Brett Favre. Look, Brett Favre's thrown for 70,000 yards, won a Super Bowl, won an MVP, played for 20 years, if you want to talk about compiling, Mike. But it's the interceptions. It's the 300-plus interceptions.
Yeah. And I guess that's why Ben has Aaron Rodgers on his list. Aaron Rodgers has the best touchdown interception ratio of all time. So makes sense.
Fair.
Out of I looked at around 14 guys' stats, only guy that has under 100 interceptions. But he also maintains the 364 touchdowns he's still thrown for already. I think the interceptions is my knock on Montana and Marino. Both of them not kill their quarterback rating, which isn't a perfect stat, but it is a good general stat to view yards to touchdowns to interceptions.
Yeah. All right. Before we end, though, I want to plug the fact that we are actually going to come together with a mock draft. We're going to get 8 college guys in a room, and we're going to talk about Bryce has graduated.
A
virtual room. Yes.
That's what you were waiting on.
We're going to get everybody in a virtual room, and Bryce also not a college guy, college-aged individuals, I should say. And the 8 of us are going to pick 4 teams each and mock out the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. And we will present you with that. We'll give you some expertise on how exactly it played out. So keep an eye out for that. And that is all we have. Until next time, this has been
Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Ben,
love having you on the show.
As always, we'll see you again on the draft.
Anyone you want to shout out?
Just like to thank my parents.
Okay, definitely. That totally. Bryce would thank his parents after every show if we let him. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and check us out in all the normal places. This has been Between the 20s.